Hello and welcome to Iceni Projects vlog, When Tomorrow Comes. This is our sort of regular look at trends that are happening in the Iceni Futures realm, looking at what's happening in the built environment and how we can start to shape the future and respond to future challenges. I'm lucky enough to be joined today by Nathan Pearce, who's Programme Director at the Sharing Cities Initiative, being run out of City Hall. Morning, Nathan. How you doing?
Good morning. Hi, Dan. Not bad, thanks.
Good, good. I'll leave Nathan to introduce himself in a bit. Basically, today, Nathan and I are going to be discussing smart cities and how smart city technology relates to the coronavirus crisis and how we might start to see a sort of smart city response to the current challenges we're facing. So, over to you, Nathan. Tell us a bit about yourself and the Sharing Cities programme.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, my name is Nathan Pearce and I'm the head of the Smart London team in the Greater London Authority. There's sort of two key things that we do as a team in the GLA. We support the Mayor and specifically the Chief Digital Officer, Theo Blackwell, in delivering London's smart city strategy, which is called Smarter London Together. And in that, we look at a whole range of different things that come under the banner of both smart and digital services. Things like how we can improve how we do user-centered design on public services, how we use data to drive evidence-based decision-making and improve the services that are on offer in London, how we make sure that we've got world-class smart streets and we have the best connectivity that we possibly can have, and how we ensure that people have the skills to use this new technology and benefit from this new technology as well. And then there's a big part there around collaboration. London is an incredibly fragmented city, 33 boroughs, multiple NHS trusts, lots of pan-London agencies like TfL and Fire Brigade and so on. So we play a role in bringing those groups together to do things in a more collaborative way and to benefit from London's scale. That's one side of what we do as a team. The other side of what we do is we also run London's biggest smart city project, which is called Sharing Cities. And that's a 24 million euro European funded project, which is in its last year, where we've been testing a range of different types of technology across smart mobility, lots of different transport types of technology, retrofitting buildings to make them smart and energy efficient, citizen engagement applications, how we can use behavioural change in order to make people more energy efficient or to choose more energy efficient options, smart lampposts, many hundreds of them, and then also data platforms, the kind of the glue that brings all of this smart digital technology together. That project, Sharing Cities, is London, Lisbon in Portugal and Milan in Italy, and we lead it here from the GLA across all of those cities. We're testing all the same types of technology to see what works, to see what the common features are, and to see what can go to market and what has a good business case. And that at the moment is, we've had some real successes, like we've retrofitted Lisbon's town hall, and we've seen a 40 to 50% reduction in energy use in all of the technology that we've put in there for an historic building. That's incredible. We've got the first public sector housing estate in London, potentially in the whole of the UK, heated by the River Thames with water source heat pump and various different technologies in there. And in Milan, they're really leading the way in the what we call the digital social market, which is the citizen engagement applications. So it's quite a wide-ranging exercise, and what we're doing now is trying to extract the learning from that project so that all Londoners can benefit.
Sounds fascinating. And just with regard to your colleagues in City Hall and your European partners, how are they all coping with the current lockdown and movement restrictions? I mean, obviously you mentioned your partners in Milan. That's at the heart of the Italian epidemic. But obviously, we've got our own challenges here regarding how we carry on working in City Hall and in sort of wider society. So how are you all getting on with that?
I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? It's also been somewhat fascinating leading a project which has those cities in which you rightly identified, you know, are at different stages. You know, we were all really scared in the early days of this outbreak because we were visiting Milan quite a lot and we were going to the Lombardy region. So pretty much all of my team had to quarantine ages ago. It feels like weeks and weeks ago now. Because we had travelled there in December and so on. Luckily, none of us contracted the disease, so that's good news there. In Milan, you probably heard this in the news, they're a couple of weeks ahead. I think what you don't understand from the news, you hear the more sort of sensational stuff. I think one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from my Milanese partners is the boredom that's setting in and the monotony that's setting in. A lot of people are saying to me that they've got used to the way of life now. Yeah, there are kind of flare-ups now and then, but largely society's getting on with it. But there is starting to get to that point of, you know, how long is this going to go on for? Have they got the technology to enable them to work in that way for that amount of time? So I think it's quite tricky. But in Milan, they're pretty much where we are, except they're not allowed to do the exercise stuff that we're allowed to do in London. So that's a bone of contention for them as well. In Lisbon, in Portugal, they're pretty much exactly where we are. They already had restrictions on their supermarkets, so they never saw panic buying. But they're pretty much where we are at the moment. And I think their big concern is the way that the disease has run away in Spain. So they're doing all they can to try and prevent what's happening in Spain happening in Portugal. So yeah, I think that's where we are across those partners. In London, in the GLA, obviously we have a key role in London's response to the virus outbreak. So the Greater London Authority is home to London's resilience team and our resilience strategy. And as part of that, there's lots of different things that we do, lots of things that kick in when a big event or a big crisis, for want of a better word, happens, such as this. The thing that we're working on in the GLA specific, so there's stuff that the police works on, there's stuff that Transport for London works on, and Fire Brigade. What we're really focused on in the GLA are sort of three key areas. The first one is, how do we communicate and continue a conversation with Londoners? How do we make sure the right messages get out to Londoners and that they're filtered for Londoners specifically? The second area is looking at the societal impact. We know that there's huge inequality in London. It's something that the Mayor Sadiq Khan has been very keen to try and do everything he can to reduce. And unfortunately, that inequality means that quarantine is a very different experience for different types of people. So we're doing everything that we can to look at ways of alleviating things for people who live in homes of multiple occupancy, people who don't have a garden, don't have equipment to work at home, etc., etc. So that's a key plank. Another area of that same area is looking at the economy as well. How are we going to help the economy not have as large an impact as what it could have? How can we cushion the blow of lots and lots of businesses closing down temporarily, lots of people out of work, etc. And then the third area, which is actually an area that I'm working on, is what we call our recovery cell. And it may feel like it's a bit early to start talking about recovery, but a really important thing that we need to start doing now is looking at how we can make sure that London gets back up to speed as quickly as possible once this is all over. And it may feel like a bit early to do that now, but if somebody said to you at any other time, London is going to change inconceivably and irrevocably in 6 months' time, you would want to start planning as soon as you possibly can. So that's kind of where we are. And a big part of that right at this moment in time is scenario planning. We're looking at what will London emerge into, and we don't know, but we can start to map out various different levels. We can look at things like the Spanish flu in 1918 and what happened after that. Actually, interestingly, they got back to business as usual quite quick, but there was a war going on, so it's a very different circumstances. You can look at the 2008 crash and what happened after that. So we've got some pointers, but we're in a fairly unique period of time where nothing like this has happened before. So that's what the GLA is doing at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, this is a kind of unprecedented crisis. You know, we've never dealt with anything like this before, have we? So how does your scenario planning relate to the work you were doing before about sort of smart cities technology and data-driven decision making?
Yeah, so the really important part at this stage is the data. So I think there's, and this is at multiple different levels. So, you know, in order to know what business as usual was in the past, we've been doing quite a lot of work to make sure that we've got really good baselines, that we actually know what the air quality was like, that we're actually collecting that information from the 33 boroughs, that we've got really good detailed economic information of what London was like all the way up until the virus. And this is something that we've been doing for years, but what we're doing now is try to bring it all into one place and format it in such a way that we can start to use it to drive decision making. So you've got to know what the situation was in order to know what has changed. We're also looking at how we can improve the coordination of data collection currently. So, for example, this inadvertently is one of the biggest experiments ever in decarbonising our city, which is a fascinating experiment we would never have got the rights or the permission to do previous to this, and obviously it's not the way that we would like to have done it. But we are in a situation now where we have, you know, we're effectively modelling the 2050 targets on petrol cars on the road. You know, there are hardly any petrol cars on the road. And what we need from the technology that we've mobilised in London, both from sensors on lampposts to some of the satellite data that we purchase and our data platforms and just and our air quality air monitoring stations, is to really understand what impact that's having, what it's having on a day-to-day basis, what impact it's having on particulates, what impact it's having on temperature, what impact it's having on travel times, all this kind of stuff. If this goes on for a long time, can we monitor impact on asthma and health outcomes as well? And this kind of information is going to be really, really important for when we do return back to normal, because it will be able to tell us what the impact of certain policies will be. And it will be able to tell us for definite what those impacts would be rather than speculative. So I think in the short term and potentially medium term as well, the real role of smart technology, we're not going to be able to go out there and put lots of sensors up right now because that's not allowed. But we have got a lot of sensors out there. We've got a lot of data and information. So the real thing that we need to be doing now is making sense of that and using and getting that data into a shape that we can use it when things do return to normal. And it's also another thing that I think is quite important about some of the technology that we've mobilized is what we can do to support people to live more independently at home. And I think this is a really interesting area. And it's kind of sort of two key things that have happened in the last couple of weeks, and there's potentially more uses for this. So the first is how technology can help vulnerable people to live at home independently for as long as possible. This technology is proving to be really useful for some people in supported housing schemes, in sheltered housing schemes. It was never intended to support someone to live independently during an outbreak of a major virus, but actually it's been proving useful, particularly people who are very isolated anyway, in helping them with medication, in helping them with care packages, and helping them with shopping and so on. The other thing is about keeping people's homes. So the work that we've done in terms of retrofitting buildings to make them more smart and to make them more energy efficient and to improve connectivity, we've got an incredible chance now to monitor those homes being used 24 hours a day for people living and working in those homes, an opportunity that we never had beforehand. So I think it's going to be a really interesting opportunity to look at how retrofitting buildings can make them more livable and more energy efficient for the people who live in them. Again, as I said before, it's not how we would have liked to have done this. It's not something we would have chosen to done, but we've got to use this opportunity.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly impressed by the way your team are thinking ahead as to what how you bring London out of this, and obviously what the learning opportunities are, and you know, developing London's resilience in future to this sort of thing. Bit of a controversial question now. Could the technology you're working with, could it be used to stop this happening again? I mean, we've seen the South Korean government praised for their response to it, but they used a lot of tracking and tracing technology to sort of contain the spread of the virus. Is this the sort of thing that you're looking into, or is that really a bit too big brother for the UK and for London in particular?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I think the short answer to the question you asked in is it's not something that we're looking into now. I feel that at this moment in time, it's about what I was talking about, understanding the data. It's about reacting to the situation as it currently is. What you find when you work in this area, particularly if you attend some of the trade shows and you engage with the marketplace, is there is a huge amount that can be done now with this technology in terms of tracking and tracing. What came out of the Iraq War is that you can actually tell the health condition of certain people using heat tracing and heat imaging, and this kind of technology exists. And in certain countries, you could get away with using it. But I think in the UK, there definitely isn't an appetite, as far as we can tell, certainly not from us, to start to deploy this kind of technology at scale. I think we need to be very, very careful about striking that balance between collecting data and monitoring individuals. And I think certainly in the UK and certainly in London, people are very keen to share their data. Indeed, if you ever want to launch an app, London is one of the best cities in the world because people very voluntarily give you lots of data and use that app and test it for you. But also people do really respect their privacy here in the UK and in London, and we do as well. I think what is more important than saying the GLA would, look for types of technology that could in some way increase testing or monitor individuals or whatever. I think what we'd be more keen to do as this crisis continues and as we come out the other end is start to have a much stronger conversation with Londoners and start to have much more engagement with Londoners about what actually they expect in the future. We've got a lot of data sets out there, such as NHS data, police data, and so on, which are kind of very much segregated data sets. There is a conversation that we can have with Londoners now saying, actually, do you want us to start bringing this kind of data together, big data, and start to use it to prevent situations happening? And if people don't want us to do that, we won't do it. If people do want us to do that, then that's something that we can look at doing. And I think this is something that we can look at. We can look at certain types of technology that say, if one of the scenarios that comes out at the end of this is that this is very likely to happen again in the not too distant future, then there is technology out there that can support some of the things that have been a bit of a challenge this time round, like home working, like social distancing, like the supermarkets and the troubles that they've had, better kind of online solutions. So there is some fairly practical stuff that we can look at and support. But I think in terms of the surveillance part and the privacy, I think there needs to be a conversation, both at a London level and probably a national level, that comes out of the end of this around what we can do and what is possible.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. So that probably wraps it up for today's vlog and today's chat with Nathan on the Sharing Cities and his contribution to the coronavirus crisis. I'd like to thank Nathan for his contribution and like to encourage you all to leave comments in the box below and tune in again soon. Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.